You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John. I was trying to think while listening to the soundtrack. I was thinking of my favorite medieval films. And I don't know if I'm going for realism or just like beauty in film production. I would probably have to say films, loosely medieval would be like Braveheart, or The Green Knight. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen The Green Knight, actually. I would say for that kind of genre, it's a flawed movie, but it's so epic. The Kingdom of Heaven, especially
I've heard good things about that.
The director's cut is really good. It's long, but it has a really solid core of a story. But I know there's it's not perfect, but it's good.
I've heard very good things about that, and it is one of those movies I think was polarizing. You either loved it or you hated it, but
yeah,
I have not seen it yet, which is a shameful thing to say.
It's pretty good.
Now, if you go fantasy, for me, it's easily Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much hands down Lord of the Rings.
It's hard to top that. Fellowship of the Ring, to be exact, for me.
Yeah. Not the Hobbit movies.
No, not the Hobbit movies. Oh my God. Talk about a nosedive, right?
I know.
So close. So close. Yeah, I have so many fond memories of going to see the Lord of the Rings. Like, I would go with my friends, and especially my buddy Brett. He was big into the Lord of the Rings books, and I had read The Hobbit. I hadn't read the Lord of the Rings until after the Fellowship came out. And man, we went to that opening day, and then after that, it was constant.
Yeah.
I must have seen the Fellowship of the Ring in theaters around 10 times.
Jeez.
And it sounds expensive, but it really wasn't, because after a certain amount of time, we had a $1 theater locally. So I would get to see it a lot. And then surprisingly, my sister latched onto this movie, and she, at the time, she was not like a big fantasy person.
Right.
And she latched onto this. She saw this, I think it was 17 times.
Wow.
In theaters.
Well, I mean, you lock eyes with Viggo Mortensen, you're sold, right?
I think a little bit for her, but she was definitely a Legolas lady.
Okay.
Okay.
All
God.
Right. It's one of those.
She's older than me. She latched on to Legolas like with a vice grip.
Yep.
But I respect it. She really appreciated the movies, and we actually got to bond over it, which was something really
nice.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some.
It was strange, but it was a new thing for us.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character from Lord of the Rings, if you had to choose?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, I love Boromir.
Yes.
His and I love Boromir and Faramir. Both of them together,
very much so,
are such good characters.
They're easily the best, I think.
Yeah, just the character arc, and
I think they're just the most human.
Mm-hmm.
Boromir is just a flawed person, but he's trying his hardest to do so right by his father and his kingdom that he just makes these unfortunate mistakes. So.
Yep.
And then Faramir can't get any love from his fucking dad.
He's doing everything right, and nobody respects him.
No respect. A lot of tragedy in Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Much like the soundtrack to this game, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tragedy in Crusader Kings III, in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to discuss in this one. It's just I won't jump into it. I'll let you do the intro, but there's just a lot of atmosphere, like a weird mix of atmosphere and theatrical.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, though.
I mean, we're talking about Crusader Kings III. It's a grand strategy game by Paradox Interactive, a Swedish company, I believe. in the vein of many of their other grand strategy games like Europa Universalis and Hearts of Iron and things of that nature. But in this one, instead of taking control of a nation, you are taking control of a dynasty. You're trying to ensure that your family name grows and becomes one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful family in all of Europe, Northern Africa, Middle East, basically the whole world, the whole known world.
That is a big game. That's a big ask.
And you take control of a character at a time. So you are the king, the earl, the baron, the count, the duke, and it is your job to ensure that your children are married off, that your children are educated and aren't complete screw-ups who are going to destroy your nation when you die. That aren't
the Faramir's,
exactly. And
we've come full circle.
And full circle, but it deals with murder, treachery, lust, wars between nations, and then wars between petty counts. It's all in between. It really is an epic game that you can play. It's interesting. It's a game that you can fail in, and it makes it more fun. If your realm fractures, it can be momentarily disappointing and frustrating, but what it does is it makes you have a new puzzle to solve. My realm's fractured. Now I have to figure out how to murder my brother so I can get his claims, or just go to war and put him in prison. Whatever. It's a really unique game.
Just listening to you talk about it and the research I did for it, it was the implications of this game that it's just staggering. There's so much to do, and you would almost call it like a life simulator in this regard.
It is.
But it's not your typical like real-time strategy. I mean, you are guiding armies and things like that, but that's only part of it. It's not just relegated to that. You're focused on all the ins and outs, like you were saying, like what you would call boring stuff, like managing populations and people's happiness, that kind of thing. That's a lot going into this game, and
and like you said, the armies, warfare, that is maybe, I would say, a quarter of the game, and then the rest of it is managing your vassals, managing their happiness and how happy they are with you, managing your rivals, managing your family, and now with the new expansion that is coming out, your character is going to be able to go on tours of your realm, go to tournaments and grand weddings and things of that nature. It really is going to be like a life simulator where you're going around glad handing with your people and making sure that they're not trying to rise up against you.
I'm gonna have to pick this game up and just try it.
Amazing game.
It sounds like it's up my alley because I was into games like Settlers of Catan and Carcassonne. Those were popular board games with me.
Yeah.
And just, even though that is just touching on some of the stuff in this game, I like the idea of working and trying to expand your territories through other things, not just war, but relationships and things like that. That stuff speaks to me.
Managing like your claims, and you have a claim on Bavaria, but you're fourth in line, and there's 3 other people in front of you. Well, you just gotta murder them all. You gotta send assassins in the night and make sure that they don't wake up.
Yeah,
and then look at that.
Like it's up my alley.
You're the Duke of Bavaria. But yeah, it really is just the best part about it is the failure is fun, which is something that you don't really find in a lot of games, and you can role play your characters. So like you can have characters who are treacherous bastards, and you can, if you want to, role play as a treacherous bastard. Every decision that comes up, you're doing the most treacherous bastard thing you could do. Or if you have a lustful character, you're having plenty of bastards, fucking all the things you can do. You're having bastards all over the place. And it causes problems, but then the problems then are fun to deal with. You're like, now your son has to deal. Like maybe your son is like the perfect son, but he has to deal with the the shitty realm that his father left him. It's all fractured and shit. So it's great.
That sounds intense. So tell me about your history. What drew you to suggest this game for the soundtrack, other than the obvious of how fun it is to listen to?
Yeah, I think
what is your history with this game? Obviously, the soundtrack did something for you.
Yeah, the game itself, I've been a fan of a lot of the Paradox Interactive Grand Strategy games. I played CK2 before, and playing through this game with the soundtrack, it just drives your mood. Every track has its own place. The banquet, or the kind of ambient dusking part, or the dusking sky, or the more warfare driven, like the Crusade starts, or the Charging of the Knights. Those songs all coalesce when they need to coalesce. So you'll be playing along, the ambient track is playing, you're doing your empire management, and then all of a sudden you're at war, and boom, here comes the perfect song, and it just gets you in the mood. It really does meld the mood of the game into your mind as you're playing.
I was listening to this. I was a little unsure of how it would kind of blend together, but I would imagine the battles or situations you find yourself in kind of swell in that triumphant music, or that dangerous music, and right. That's cool. I wasn't sure quite how relegated the game is, if at all, to different situations, like instances. Like the game doesn't stop when you enter a battle necessarily.
No,
it doesn't change, and then you're now in the So
it's all
that's cool
on the map.
So this soundtrack is composed by two people. Yep. Philip Wareborn. I believe he was born and raised in Sweden, but since 2009 has been living in Los Angeles.
And it was also composed by Andreas Waldetoft, who is also Swedish. Yes. He is the senior composer at Paradox. He's done a lot of other Paradox games like Crusader Kings II, Hearts of Iron.
Mm-hmm.
And then also on this was Nina Ackerblom Nielsen, who did vocals on two of the songs, Charge of the Knights and Knights of Jerusalem. So yeah, half of the tracks, Veni Vidi Vici, The Banquet, and Dusking Sky, part 1 and 2 were done by Philip, and the other half were done by Andreas.
Yeah, they split their duties, and the way it's always interesting to me when two to several composers can come together and create something that's just a cohesive unit, especially when you're talking soundtracks, where there could be competing ideas or things that don't go together. And these guys managed to tackle such a grand game. The scale of this game is again, massive, but they tackle it in different ways. I want to say that Wareborn is more of the atmospheric composer, and Andreas Waldetoft is that theatrical,
orchestral,
bombastic.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the dichotomy between the two composers is pretty clear, but they also fit very well together. I mean, The Banquet is a great track where you know, in the game you do have banquets. You invite people to your banquets, and it has that kind of jaunty tune, a bit of ambience to it, and but it still tells a story. It still has the softer points where people are whispering, having side conversations, and then comes back into the grand hall where the band's playing. And then Veni Vidi Vici is kind of an epic main menu song. Yeah. The operatic voice, which I thought Nina did the vocals.
I thought she did that too.
But I couldn't find any credits for her, so
neither could I. So I was looking even the minutes leading up to this. Yeah. I was like, "Who the fuck is singing this?" It has to be her. Like,
yeah.
I want to give her credit, but I guess we can't. But
yeah,
in our hearts we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those two songs right at the beginning of the album, Veni Vidi Vici opens with this just, I mean, to translate it roughly, it means, I believe, a according to Wikipedia, a swift, conclusive victory, or the idea that I came, I saw, I conquered.
Yep.
The song itself is just sorrowful and remorseful.
It is,
and
yeah.
It's just so beautiful to listen to. There's this sadness in her voice, and it just immediately calls forth those images of war and strife, and most notably, I would say, death. You know, the game is about the Crusades, so
right.
It's a magnificently bloody time in human history. So,
yeah, the songs in this album, and it's really pinpointed by Veni Vidi Vici that it's supposed to be about a grand, epic tale of victory and triumph of your dynasty, but all of the songs are just tragic. This song in particular, it's about I came, I saw, I conquered. It should be a triumphant song about you conquering your enemies, and it's just very sorrowful. It's so dark and sad.
And I think that's what speaks to me personally is just it's giving the listener and the player the opposite side of that victory, right?
Yeah.
What was the cost of this victory? What did you lose? And not just you, but your enemy, let's say. That's what these songs really do for me is there's not just this unbridled jauntiness. You know, there is the banquet where it's much more playful.
Yeah.
You know, you've got jumpy tunes. You just to call back to an earlier conversation, you get images of Merry and Pippin dancing around a pub at Bilbo's birthday or something. But that's short-lived, and there are other parts even to that song, as you mentioned, that ring true to the whisperings of plotting and what is my enemy going to do now? What's our next move? That kind of thing.
Right.
So the darkness put forth in this album really, really speaks to me just because it's so intricately woven into the fabric of this soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, that depth and darkness just, it helps give you a weight to the decisions you make in the game. Without the kind of melancholic undertones that a lot of these tracks have, a lot of the decisions you make in the game would, and they are sometimes when you're kind of not in the mood, but they are very darkly humorous to some extent. Just the things you decide to do that are so completely against who you are as a person and what you would ever decide to do, but because you're playing this nasty noble from the Dark Ages, you have like carte blanche to just do the worst things ever. And
that's the dream.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we all do it. The first time you pick up a game like, let's say, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, you kill someone that you're not supposed to kill, or someone who doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
So I can imagine the urge to spell people's doom in this game is pretty strong, whether or not you're a good person.
My youngest son, he's 1 year old, and he's going to fracture my realm if I die, and I'm like 60, and it's the Dark Ages. I'm probably going to die. So I'm going to put him in prison, and I'm going to put him in the dungeon, and he's just going to die down there. And we're going to forget about him. And it's just like the most awful things you can do, but you're like, no, this is,
this is just how it's got to be.
It's got to be.
This is how I'm feeling today.
Yeah. But without like the songs themselves to kind of drive that note down a bit, it would feel even more garish to do things like that. So you kind of feel the weight of it to some extent.
Yeah, I can believe that for sure. I think if there's one thing music helps us do is analyze.
Yeah.
At least for me, I think it's just there to help us paint a picture and evoke those emotions. So it makes those decisions in the game harder to make or more fun, depending on, the recorder playing a nice little tune while you're at a banquet or something. But Yeah, I think for me, this album really started taking shape around tracks 3 and 4, Dusking Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And the introduction for me was the hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah.
What an instrument to use. It was so good. First of all, the Dusking Sky 1 and 2, if you can just imagine a costly battle, like a field strewn with bodies of both man and steed, a lord looking over the wasteland of not only his enemy's soldiers, but his own. There's a lot of reference in pop culture to Middle Ages being lighthearted and fun.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I wanted to live in that time because of those misconceptions.
Yeah.
But the reality is much different and violent.
Right. It's pretty awful.
I think this soundtrack helps bring that truth forward. Not that we're not understanding that at our age, but right. What I mean by that is just talking to little Michael. This soundtrack is going to speak a much different tone to me than it did a long time ago. So my playful youth has been dashed. I no longer want to live in the Middle Ages. And these two songs specifically just helps illustrate those horrors of war. And it's weird to say it, but it's just a beautifully sad piece. And when that hurdy-gurdy comes in and mimics the string melody, it's so impactful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those moments between wars. I mean, these are kind of the ambient tracks that are played as you're just surveying your empire and maintaining it. But it kind of pulls you back into the decisions you've made and the horrors that are around you that are happening at all times.
And it's so subtle. Mm-hmm. The impact of the soundtrack is felt through subtlety. And there are bombastic tunes that are amazing, by the way. But that subtlety I really latch onto because it reminds me of, I can just imagine sitting there and making these deep decisions
right.
and listening to this stuff and not being bored to death of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of this stuff might come off as uninteresting to people, the ins and outs of diplomacy, but I get on board with that real quick.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I want to say they took notes from, and maybe not, I'm sure there are plenty of other titles like this, but it reminded me a little bit of Red Dead Redemption 2, if you've played that at all. There's a lot of that tonally referential, I'll say, music.
Yeah.
But it's all just underlying what you're doing. It's just there. You could just be walking around, riding around on your horse, doing nothing, but it's that much more entertaining because of the soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this does here.
Yeah, you have that pensiveness that you can really like lean your elbows up on your desk and kind of think about what you're doing for your empire and what are your next steps. Because this kind of draws you into your mind. You are more thinking about what are your next steps and where are you going. Whereas some tracks, the more bombastic, like you said, like the Crusade Starts, really draw you into an action. Like they'd call to action. It may not be like the most elegant track there is.
It's pretty short, but
it
sells the message.
But it's I know you've only heard it as part of an album, but the feeling you get when this track plays in the game is just one of a kind. It just has this epic scope, and a terrible nature of the war is just perfectly captured. I mean, the whole world has just declared war on each other. Everybody is going to the Middle East. There's hundreds of thousands of people dying in the desert. And you just hear those horns and the vocals go. It's out of the blue. And every time it happens, my fist goes up and I'm like, yes, the Crusades.
It has that picture of that feeling of honor the soldiers from each dynasty would be feeling, right?
Yeah.
Going to war for their leader.
Yeah.
In that attitude of prematurely of emerging victorious. I think this song is that.
Yeah.
This is the beginning. You've got those high spirits, hopefully.
Yeah.
And morale is high right now.
And then you have to worry about the AI just screwing you up and totally abandoning you into the desert while the Muslims just run over you in the desert. So, it's highs and lows.
So I imagine you're playing this game, and did you ever make decisions that you really were not confident in? Is this one of those games where you had to test it personally, or you just were not confident in your decision?
I would say so. I think there are times where you go to war. It's tough because, like, as a player and as a person, and myself specifically, I like overanalyzing things and making sure that I'm always doing the right thing at all times.
Gotcha.
But there are times where you have to take a chance, and it'll give you odds sometimes of like how likely am I to murder this person. But sometimes you're like, if I don't do this, everything's gone. This guy's going to take over my realm, and I'm dead. So, like, yeah, there are definitely decisions you make that are not 100%.
Okay, good stuff.
Yeah.
I can imagine myself being a sufferer of OCD, sitting there and going, okay, I have to make the perfect decision
right
now. And if this goes wrong, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight.
Yeah. As someone who role plays, it is still really hard for me to turn off my analytical brain and role play the characters. I one of these days, I haven't really done it to the fullest extent. I've like played around. I'm like, oh, this guy's kind of whatever, and I'll make some bad decisions or whatever. But I think I need to really, maybe I'll stream it or something and play a game where I'm actually role playing the characters and like hardcore making decisions.
That would be cool.
Yeah, because that's what's fun. It's what's fun about the game is like you fail and you have to. It's all these like mini puzzles that you're playing. And if you don't fail, you don't get the mini puzzle. You just get the big puzzle, which, if you've played for 300 hours, is a pretty easy puzzle at the end of the day.
So all these decisions, I imagine the failing is there are multiple aspects to it, right?
Yeah.
So you can fail in diplomacy and war, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if you fail, you can plot to murder somebody, and you get caught, but still murder them, and then you get labeled a murderer, or you murder somebody and maybe you didn't get caught, but then someone finds out you were a murderer and they have a secret against you, and they can use that as leverage. Or you are a lustful king and you sleep with a barmaid and you have a bastard, and maybe that bastard has a claim, or maybe someone discovers that claim and uses that claim to go to war with you. So yeah, it's all these like little decisions that you can make that can have consequences. That can be fun.
Yeah. Well, but back to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I think coming off the song "The Crusade Starts," that is such a weird placement to me on the album. It's song 8 of 9 on the soundtrack, but I think it's like sending the player or the listener off into the game at that point. That kind of is where I get the placement of that. That's the message I'm getting. This is the end of the soundtrack, but now the game begins.
Right.
But keeping with that very, very fist in the air, high energy, bombastic song of "The Crusade Starts," I think "Knights of Jerusalem," another Waldetoft song.
Yeah.
It also has that very grand feeling. It describes the majesty and maybe the superiority of the Knights of Jerusalem. There's a great build-up in it, and it just takes a little bit of time to get to that sweeping magnificence of the song. But once it hits, it fucking hits.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to call attention to that song just because it is very different from the first few songs on the album, especially Dusking Sky Parts 1 and 2. It's just the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think there's, with some songs, the album offers that backdrop that we're talking about where, you know, these mundane choice-making sessions can keep you entertained. This is the other end of that coin where there's more action, more theatrical sounding. This is where you get the chills in the movie. Yeah. And what I notice is that the songs do kind of seem to flip-flop between atmospheric and theatrical, and there's a nice balance between stage setting and, you know, soldiers who want to fight for their king and hopefully emerge victorious. So there's very dramatic moments to this piece.
Yeah, it has those that kind of almost ethereal start to it where it's almost mystical, you know, and then it rises into that lovely violin part. But yeah, it all culminates in that strife, that war, in an epic sense. You know, a lot of wars you go into in Crusader Kings, they'll have downtime and they'll have times where you're moving armies around, and then you'll have times where you're clashing, and they can take a little while. So it's nice that the tracks kind of ebb and flow and let you kind of feel the ebb and flow of battle. Yeah,
Waldetoft is really showing some strength in capturing the different aspects of battle. Yeah. And I think this song is just a great example of that because, you know, while you do get those chills and you do feel that sense of, you get that dopamine dump. There's an accomplishment here that you feel in the song that really gets you going. The same thing that you feel when you're watching Lord of the Rings or something, and there's a giant battle and the good guys are winning. Well, he also paints the opposite end of that in the same song. And I think it's just so fun to listen to.
I mean, when those horns come in, it's just chills, like 100%.
Exactly.
This could fit in any epic movie, and, you know, like you said, Lord of the Rings or Kingdom of Heaven, when the final battle is being pitched and the good guys are slow-mo charging into combat. You have those chills of like what is going to happen, and yeah, when those horns hit, it's
so powerful. Yeah. To close out the album, we've got the Dynasty, and I know you wanted to say a couple things about that.
Yeah, I think if you could take the essence of what makes Crusader Kings III a great game and then distill it into a song, I think you would have the Dynasty.
I like that you said that.
Yeah, from peacetime empire building to all-out war and like all the twists and turns in between. It's just a love letter to the franchise.
Yeah, and as you're saying that this piece can kind of encompass that whole experience, I think the flute that they use in this song is the storyteller. Yeah, because it's there at all the key moments, kind of singing this this story. If you can just imagine this game being described by the flute, the way the song marches on with the percussion and the flute, it's just regaling us with the dynasty, right?
Yeah.
It's like telling a new generation of the history of their people and the spoils of war and the dangers of continued combat,
right,
as it calms down. So there is a picture in this song as well of a tragic, let's say, battlefield. The song goes from those highs to those lows, and again captures all those things on this album.
Yeah, each section in this is a new emotion you feel as a player, as your kingdom shape through victory and failure alike. It's that flute is kind of you, and it's each section is just the different family members along the way, how they've succeeded, failed, died early, everything's been fractured, and it just kind of mirrors the emotions that you have in the game.
It's expertly crafted. The song is so fun to listen to.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts is when that choir comes in after the low point.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, it just floods forward. It's exquisite. It's like, even with all the loss, there's hope.
Waldetoft is so expert at giving you chills in the latter half of the song. He's so good at that.
Yeah. There's nothing else to say about it, because every song of his, you get chills at least once, and you get these images. It could be whatever you want to think about. It just paints a picture, every track that he does. And that being said, I'm not gonna take anything away from Wareborn. He captures all of the attitude, the mood of the game, and the mood of the setting, and that's just as important.
One thing I love about all of the tracks and the album in general, for a game that is ostensibly about the glory of your house, it's hard to find anything triumphant in any of these tracks. It's not triumphant. It's all tragedy and sorrow.
Yes. It's like, okay, you've done this, but what did you lose? And that brings me back to that point, is this whole album is about loss. And I love it, because it just, it's easy to get that. And that's not necessarily the best part of it. I don't say, oh, it's easy to understand, but it's so successful at telling the story of this game. And when you think of a strategy game like this, and to a lesser extent, normal real-time strategy games where it's just combat, you don't necessarily think of a soundtrack like this. You think of what's going to get your blood pumping and how am I going to fucking beat everyone down. It's mostly about the war. And with a game like this, where there's so many intricate details, you're going to have those downtime moments, and it's just as important. And the way these two composers bring that forth and meld it together, it works so well. And they focus on that tragedy, because there is more to just victory than being happy, I guess.
Right. I wrote, there's only one true enemy, and that is time. That's what this game is about.
Getting deep. One of my favorite parts of the soundtrack is that hurdy-gurdy.
Yep.
It speaks to me on a deep level, just the way it sounds when you put it up against the strings of the song, and it just takes me back to Dusking Sky, because it's so powerful and so sad that you could put it in any movie and it would just work for me. But if someone were to ask me, my favorite aspect of the album is, it's going to be the soundtrack to the backdrop. I'm so moved by the songs that are just when nothing's happening. The music that is pushing you forward, compelling you to move forward in a game about decisions. And it's great to have those bombastic pieces, and I love them on this album. But I think on a deeper level, for me, having something that's just there in your ear, and it feels of the time and of the location, and it's subtle, and it just speaks to me. It's good stuff, and Wareborn, mostly on those tracks, did such a great job.
Yeah.
Compelling you to move forward with your decisions and giving those decisions weight.
Right.
Like we were saying earlier. So
yeah, I totally agree. And the more bombastic tracks or the tracks that are done by Waldetoft have that epic feel to them that doesn't bleed into glorification.
Mm-hmm.
They, like we've said, would be fit in any dark, tragic, medieval movie, and they would give you chills in whatever scene they're in. And it really does help drive the mood of the game and it drive the player to fit themselves into that mood. Because sometimes you just are playing a game, but sometimes you want to feel, something. You want to feel the story of the game. Because this game, there's no real story. There's only a story you make, and the music is just there to help you build out that story.
Yeah. The composers knew that, right? They had to make these tracks together in some capacity that were beautiful to listen to and gave a sense of the times, and it could help the players imagine the material better since it's not always presented on screen. You're not face to face with your enemy in a massive army. You're looking at the game from a map, essentially. It's like just a map of the region, and you're moving from one location to the other, and you're making these decisions, and it could suck or it could be made beautiful like these two composers did. So if you're looking, I would say, for a soundtrack that's equally relaxing and majestic, then look no further, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. This fantastic. So, as we always like to do, we like to point our listeners into the direction of these composers, and you can find them at their own websites. So we have Andreas Waldetoft, WALDETOFT.com, or you can get in touch with him on Twitter at Composer Andreas. And then he also has a SoundCloud. So find him at soundcloud.com/Andreas Waldetoft-music. And then for Philip Wareborn, you can find him at philipwarebornmusic.com or at Philip Wareborn on Twitter. And good news, John, good news. They both have plenty of shit on iTunes that you can buy.
Yay.
It was easy this week. We were able to find stuff, and the album itself is on iTunes.
Sweet.
So please go check it out.
Yeah, go buy it.
There's plenty of stuff by both these artists to give you a sense of who they are and what they're about, and most importantly, you can find this album there. So please, everyone, go buy it and show them some love.
For sure.
John?
Yeah.
What would you rate this album, sir?
I mean, I have to rate it 10 out of 10 broken, rusty swords on a forgotten battlefield.
I gave it a 10 out of 10 cruciform swords.
Okay.
Because I got as I was writing that, I was like, I'm getting a hint of Indiana Jones right now. I don't know why, but I am. The Order of the Cruciform Sword. So yeah, that is our coverage today, ladies and gentlemen. And we hope you guys enjoy this album as much as we did, because I might even throw it on again to close out my night. It's just that good. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast, for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple.
We're not doing that.
We certainly did
Never
not.
mind.
Try
Scratch
again.
that. Scratch
Check
that.
it out. Look it up.
John.
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, we like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.